Hey everyone, it's Evan here from the Trade Risk on Friday, September 8th, here with a weekend market recap video. We're going to cover all of the major markets, the current market environment, and then finish off with some sector analysis. So we're going to jump right into the video today with the S&P 500 per usual, SPY ETF. You can see we finished lower just slightly on the day here on Friday, and on the week we finished down minus 0.51%. You can see an inside week from last week's I guess actually larger range over the past basically August. You could see our ranges sort of opened up a bit here as opposed to July and most of June trading. So we did have an inside week this week, and it didn't change anything really in this bigger technical picture. You can see we're still in an uptrend here, 8 and 20 period are rising, prices above that, and we're sitting just underneath all-time highs, basically a 0.5%, 1% away from those all-time highs. So I don't have a whole lot more to add to this weekend's video. We did our usual midweek video on Wednesday. That was this session right here. You can see price is basically gone nowhere since then, and that very much lines up with our sort of thought process on Tuesday. After this session right here, we put out a blog post saying probably some more chop ahead, and it's probably going to be a time to sort of sit on our hands and just kind of wait this out to see which way this scale really wants to tip. The sort of takeaway from Wednesday's midweek video was I'm still looking at this fairly constructively so long as we can hold up basically above Tuesday's lows. So that was the day where we came into this week and we had this kind of, a little bit of a flush out, a little bit of a panic here set in intraday on Tuesday. You can see bulls bid us up off of the lows down here around 245. Then we've gone sideways basically 3 inside days in a row. So for me, I still think this can be a pretty constructive looking pattern here if we can fill out, say, the right side of this, even coming all the way back to 245. But as long as we can at least hold in here, I could still kind of get behind this market and view this as constructive action. I do think we're still in store for chop here. We clearly have 3 very tight days where we basically traded the same exact 1-point range, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So it probably is expected that we'll see a little bit of range expansion here early next week, and that's probably going to set the tone if we start to break down and roll over, maybe retest this 245, or do we have some type of false breakdown that ends up kind of moving higher? We'll have to see how that all shakes out, but I think you have at least basically 246 to 247.25, 247.50 for you very active traders that are looking for that just recent nearby range. But I think overall, taking a step back, I think you have the highs up here, the all-time highs that we failed at basically last week to break out from. You have this 245 level, which I'd say is fairly important, and then from again a bigger picture standpoint, 243. These are the set of lows put in here throughout August or so, and I think that's going to be critical from the longer term sort of participants there. So that's the way I'm looking at it. 8 and 20 period bullishly still aligned here. Price is just sitting above that 8 period moving average. Let's see how we start off next week. I think that again will set the tone, and again I still think less is more right here, and sort of sitting on your hands, not getting chopped up, not trying to push too many buttons here makes a lot of sense to me, especially if you're on that swing time horizon. If you're day trading, completely different story. But for me, I'm just really trying to just dial back the activity and wait to get a little more definitive action in here. But again, I still think this can be morph into a constructive looking pattern. And on the other hand, it may not. If we start to really get a violent move lower, if we have some new catalyst emerge, and we start to really break below these lows with some authority, then I'm going to change my tune and, dial back risk accordingly. So that's the S&P 500. If we go to the IWM here, you can see basically pulling back here for most of this week as well. Tuesday had that down session of almost 1%, and then we had this inside day on Wednesday, and we're just trying to basically put in some lows here right around 138.50 or so, and a little bit of an uptick in volume here on Friday into those rising 8 and 20 period moving averages. So again, this would be a very constructive spot for the bulls to hold on to. This is kind of upper level trend based on the movement we had over the past several weeks. So if we could hold in here at that that 20 period, this 138.50 level. I think that would be a big win for the bulls. But again, even if we have to come back down a little bit further, I think we can still sort of, make a case that all is not lost right here. But the more this can kind of hold up the IWM, the better I think this market, really just bodes going forward. And the NASDAQ 100 saw a little bit of underperformance here on Friday. You can see finished lower, a little over 1% here on the week, but still just under all-time highs here. So inside week from last week, got some support in this 20 period rising moving average, or flattening moving average, I guess, about 143.50 to 144. I think ideally same thing. If bulls could hold in here above Tuesday's lows, I think that's the most bullish scenario. If we roll back to the bottom end of this range, that is certainly still, again, a possibility. It would, certainly derail any immediate pending breakout. But again, all is not lost if we want to just chop around in a bigger range here. So that's the scoop on the market environment. Let's hit some of these other major markets. We'll go to TLT next. Saw a nice uptick in volume here as this has pushed to new highs. It's very kind of definitively taking out the prior highs here from June. And if we look at this weekly candle, looks a little different than our midweek video where we had more of a double top potential looking candle here. You can see we really kind of filled out nicely, closed near the highs, took out last week's highs, a little bit of an uptick in volume there. So I do think that is notable here, that this uptrend is continuing on the weekly chart. If we zoom out here, you'd have to go all the way back down to this big breakout bar, breakdown bar back in basically election time of last year of 2016. So we're starting to get back to those old prior prices, 132 or so, that had some prior heavy supply throughout the beginning of 2016. So we're a few points from there. Maybe we get up there, but so far the trend is holding up. This trend line, 8 and 20 period, all bullishly aligned. So we do have supportive bullish price action there on the TLT. If we go to the gold next, you can see finish the week again strong, 1.5% to the upside. So this uptrend is just continuing to march higher, getting fairly extended here on the weekly time frame. I wouldn't necessarily want to be chasing this, but I wouldn't want to fight this type of momentum either. So the bulls still very firmly in control here. Silver, same exact thoughts, getting a little bit more extended, but I would not want to fight this. Bulls are in control here on multiple time frames. So those are the metals. Oil next. Had a 3% down day, filled this gap in here, and rolled over from these recent prices. If we go to the weekly chart, you can see we actually managed to finish higher still despite Friday's sell-off. But you can see we're basically reacting right at this 8 and 20 period, which are declining here on the weekly chart. I liked this pop higher on Tuesday of this week, and then the follow through on Wednesday. I obviously don't like so much this give back here on Friday. I like USO, very much so above 10. The fact that we couldn't close the week above there would have me concerned. We're coming back into these flattening sort of moving averages here. So this looks like it could be kind of like the major averages here. A little bit of a headache, maybe some chop, maybe some sideways, sort of a bigger range develops here. But for me, I think back to $10, reclaiming these highs, getting a couple of closes above that. That's really what I would want to see. But again, I don't think all is lost here. We're above sort of the pivot lows here from August. Let's see how this acts into next week. I think getting ready or getting interesting for a potential trade setup there for our sort of style, but needs a little bit more time for me. UNG, so this was a position that we've been long since 821. We got stopped out here on this gap down on Friday's action, basically taking out where we trailed up our stop on this nice igniting bar here back to the upside. The fact that we broke back below there is enough for me to throw this trade off. We do have still some lingering support here, but I don't like the gap down. I don't like the kind of continuation lower here into the end of the week, and I don't like taking out this this low here. So natural gas, I mean, the pattern itself is a potential bottoming pattern, could still hold itself up, and I'd gladly get back into this for another trade setup if we can now start to get back above 670 or so. But for now, stopped out of it, took the loss, and no longer in this position in natural gas. So that, I think, wraps up all of the major markets. Let's quickly go over some sectors. Not too many to go through. I think XLE is notable this week. It had a tough day on Friday, down 1%, but still up 1.29% here on the week. So that puts it on the top of the relative performance list as far as sectors go. Much overdue. 8 and 20 period curled back up. Got back above these July and June lows. So I do like this potential here, a little bit of an uptick in volume on this move higher here. So it is constructive to see something to start to pay attention to, especially if you guys have been waiting for that mean reversion. Again, I still would recommend looking at some of those individual components to potentially get a little bit better risk to rewards there. So XLE is interesting. It's notable. XLV also just a monster this week, 1.61% to the upside, breaking out to new highs here, taking out old resistance, good volume coming in, short-term trends all remain higher. So healthcare strong. That could drill down even more specifically to biotech, which is just kind of cooling off here and moving sideways, the equal weighted XBI, and then the market cap weighted IBB. And then finally, XLU, we sort of talked about this pullback in our midweek video, starting to get some moves to the upside here. So this kind of safe haven utilities play, getting a bid very close to making new highs here. Actually did make new closing highs on Friday here, so that's constructive. IYT also kind of kicking back up into gear here. This has been all over the place, but it is kind of putting in this higher low here from this 166.50 level, and it is trying to go out on the highs of the week, or in fact did go out on the highs of the week and made progress to the upside this week. So again, in the relative outperformance category here for the transportation average. And then the real sort of laggard this week with financials. Financials struggled all week, down 2.7% to finish off the week, and it would have been even worse if it weren't for Friday's snapback here of almost 1%. But after losing sort of this general area here, the July lows and some of this chop in here from early to mid-August, this is in the penalty box, as we sort of discussed in our midweek video. 8 and 20 period bearishly aligned moving averages are heading lower above price. So that's not something I want to see. I'd want to see XLF at this point back above, 24.75 or so. If we can get back above that level, I'd start to get a little more constructive on XLF, but I think this at least needs time. If not, it's, or worse, sellers are going to continue to be in control here. And maybe that makes a lot of sense with TLT rallying, rates falling again. So we'll have to see how XLF plays out. But for now, would not really want to touch this. Uptick in volume coming in over the past several sessions. It's notable, but I'd still want to see this play itself out before I take a position really in either camp. So that is the weekend video. Again, for a little more context, you can watch last Wednesday's video, give you some more context there. And I think that's it. So thanks so much for watching. Enjoy your weekend and talk to you guys again soon.